What is up, everybody? Welcome back to part 2 of my chicken coop build. Today we're going to go over the roof framing and also putting up the T111 siding. So let's jump into it. Make sure to stay to the end so you don't make any of the same mistakes that I've made so far. So I decided to go with a lean-to style roof. This was just a little easier for me to frame up and build, as well as this is the style of coop that I just kind of wanted to look at the design like. So for framing up the roof, I want to go into a little bit more detail, as I know a lot of people probably haven't framed up a roof before and done the bird's mouth cut. And so to start off, you're really going to want to just take a 2x4. I am looking for about 3 foot overhang on the front and 1 foot overhang on the back. That's totally up to you on how big you want your roof. Mine is going to be about 12 by 14. So when you're just thinking about my measurements and what I'm doing, that's about the size I'm going for. So the first thing you want to do is just lay up a 2x4 up there and mark the front and back of your boards. I was framing with 2x6s, so my gap is going to be about 5.5 inches. But if you're framing with 2x4s, then your gap will be about 3.5 inches. But this is just to give your layout of where your bird mouth cut needs to be. One more quick thing while we're over here is we do need to know the slope of the roof. So basically the way that you need to find that is going to be the rise over the run. So it's how much your roof slants over 1 foot distance. And so, for example, if you had 12 foot of run and a total of 12 inch of drop, then you have 1 inch slope. So just take a minute to figure that out before we head back to the table. Once you're back over at the table, just verify that your gap is what it needs to be. And so if mine is 5.5 inches, it's perfect. And once you have that, just make sure to mark along the entire part of the board, the back side there, with your framing square. And once you have that, you're going to want to take your slope. So mine is just over 1 inch, it's about a 1.5 inch slope. Right there where I'm pointing, you can see that that's where you need to put your framing square and make a new line on the back side, and that will be the slant that will actually be vertical to your 2x6s or 2x4s when you have your cut. And take your larger square and line up along that line that you just drew for your angle, and line it up with either the 3.5 inch mark or 5.5 inch mark, depending on what you are framing with. And once you have that all lined up, that triangle there is what you're going to want to mark, and that is going to be what you need to cut out for your bird's mouth cut. I hope that I did explain that well. If you need a little more help with that, let me know in the comments below, and I'll make a little bit better of a video explaining that and how to do the bird's mouth cut. But basically, I just used a jigsaw to make this cut. My slope is not super steep, so it's a little bit of a smaller cut, and so jigsaw worked out best for me, but you can use whatever you have. Just make sure not to cut too far, overcut or anything. Then once you have that cut, you're going to want to go to the other side and do the exact same markings and measurements and everything. Get that cut out, and once you have that cut out, this is going to be your template. So make sure to go back to your chicken coop, lay it on top of there, and make sure everything lines up well, that your bird's mouth cuts are butting up to the back of both sides of the 2x4 on the top of your walls, and that they're laying flat. Once you verify that, you're going to want to use that template for every single board. And so you'll go and make your markings on every single one and get them all cut out, and then you're ready to begin framing your roof. Alright, so framing up my roof, I am staying consistent with my 2 foot on center framing. I would say that if you're going to do 16 on center framing anywhere extra, this is where I would probably do it, but this is the wood that I had. And so I am using blocking. Those 2x6s that you can see me putting on top of the top plate of the wall is the 2 foot minus 3 inches, which is the width of 2 boards, to give me the exact measurement I need, so that just makes the spacing easier, as well as it just makes it sturdier, so that those 2x4s aren't going to bend back and forth as you're screwing them in, as well as those bird's mouth cuts are going to allow them to sit flat, have a flat surface to sit on top of the wall, and so everything will just work out a lot better when you do it that way. I promise I'm going to fix the swaying. That's happening with my building right now. That's just going to be fixed with a diagonal member. I'll throw up a picture real quick to show you. My camera did have a little bit of, well, my phone had some issues with recording, and so I didn't get the rest of the roof build, but I'll show a picture real quick. So that is the diagonal member that I added to make sure that my building is not swaying back and forth whenever I'm pushing on it, like you saw with the ladder. To do that, all you have to do is like literally just make like a 45-degree cut on the bottom and then go up to a corner just as far as you can and screw into each of the studs, and that's gonna make it 10 times stronger. Like it's a quick fix. I just hadn't done it yet. But then to zoom in on the roof real quick, you can see that I did add another 2x4 on each of the outsides to give me that 12x14 framing, and then I had my brother-in-law come and help me out with putting up the fascia boards, which I just used 2x4s, as you can see, as well as the plywood on top. And so pretty quick process. It's just a matter of having a helping hand to get all the boards up there. But I do have a little bit of video screwing that in. You're just like on the floor, you're gonna just want to make sure that your seams are tight and make sure that you're putting a screw in about, you know, every 6 inches to a foot. Make sure everything is secure up there. So now once I had everything up, I do have some more of the paper left over from the house, and so I'm going to use that on the roof as well. You know, I'm always going for the best shot, so I'll make sure to put the paper right in the frame. Sorry about that. But when you're fastening these down, again, just make sure that the front side is square, and then use the lines to go from there to make sure, you know, just overlap it enough. And I would use just like roofing nails or staples to put this on. I had some drywall screws, that works fine too. You don't have to worry about doing too much there, because when you put whatever roof material you're going to use on top of it, it'll secure it down anyways. And so now that I have that ready, I'm going to use some old metal roofing that I have that we took off of the house. And so that's why I went with a 14 foot roof, as that makes my boards line up perfectly, makes my metal line up perfectly. And so you're going to want to just square up one side of it and then go and lay out your entire roof. And so once you've got your side squared up and screwed down, just lay out everything, overlap the seam on the one side as you're going across your whole roof, to make sure that you have it perfectly laid out before you screw everything down. So then I just followed the outline of the screw holes that were still there from taking it off the roof. So it looks like it was about 1.5 to 2 foot apart from each other. And you do, if you're using metal roofing, you do need to get some metal roofing screws. They have a little gasket on the head that squishes when you sink it into the metal, and allows that no water is going to get through. And for the holes that were already there on my metal, I'm just going to use some roofing caulk. If you have any holes or scratches or anything in your metal, you can just cover it up with some roofing caulk. So luckily it's pretty simple, a small roof, get it done pretty quick. And so then for the siding, I am going to use T111 4-inch on center exterior siding boards. I just think it looks pretty nice. It's pretty simple to put up if you have an extra hand. They can be a little tricky to put up yourself, but I'm sure it can be done. And so basically what I had to do is, since 3 of my walls were about 7 foot, and then my front wall was 8 foot, I could leave the 8 foot ones alone, but I needed to cut the rest of them to 7 foot, is what you just saw me do. And then my dad was able to come help me get everything lined up. These sheets do have a seam that you can overlap to make sure everything fits nice and tight. So just make sure that you're lining them up correctly so that you're overlapping that seam correctly. I wouldn't stress too much about having everything nice and perfect and tight, as you can do like 3-inch trim boards along the seams and along the corners to fix any imperfections that you have. So just get it as close and as tight as you can, as that can always be a fix later. And I will probably end up doing that, so stick around for whenever I put up my trim boards. You can see on this side that I am covering up the hole for the window. I just think that it's a little bit easier to cut out the siding boards once it's up there, rather than trying to get everything measured and cut out. It might be a little cleaner if I did that, but it's going to be a window and trim around it anyway, so it doesn't have to be super clean. And as you can see, I'm doing the same thing with the door. I will make one comment there, that you're going to want to make sure that when you're framing the walls that you are going to be spaced correctly, that 4-inch wide will land on a stud. And so I did mess that up a little bit, and I missed a stud on my seams because I adjusted my framing according to the door width. So I had to go back and just add another stud on the inside, and it wasn't a big deal, just something extra that I didn't think about when I was framing. So you can see for cutting out the door and also the window is if you just drill 4 holes in the 4 corners, and then run a sawzall or a jigsaw or whatever you have along the edge, and then you can clean it up from there. I will say one thing is that whenever you're cutting this out, if you don't have it screwed into the boards right around where you're cutting out, then it will shake a lot and make the cutting out harder. So just make sure you have it screwed in right. But then there you have the window put in and the door put in. Those were both left over from the house as well. Really trying to reuse as much as we can for this build. But there you go. There's the roof and the siding put together. Technically it is ready for chickens. I'm very soon going to be able to put those in. I'm going to get the inside finished up, get a run put up, and we'll be ready for chickens. So stick around for that. Thanks.